of selling down my product to that, if I bring my products in and they charge me 10% of my worth of my import, which is $100,000. So I can come to the market and sell that stuff to you. Just an example. I can sell it to you in Naira, maybe 2,000 Naira per one. That if I sell all my units, I will still make my maybe 1.2, 1.3 million. So in that case, if the custom charge me 100,000, I may just have a profit of $200,000 at the end of the day. But if they insist that they have to charge me 25%, which is $250,000, I will pay. The only difference, the only way to get my money back will be you won't be able to buy my product for 2,000 Naira. I may end up charging you 4,500 Naira. Considering the exchange rates, considering the tariff they put on it. So instead of you paying 2,000 Naira for that product, you end up paying 4,500 Naira. As a businessman, I will make my money. I will pay them whatever they want to pay, what they are asking for. They can go ahead and celebrate how much money they are making in tariff, how much money they are generating. But now you, they pay them. It's not that important. So if I manufacture my product inside Nigeria as a businessman, okay, and cost of production and the sale, the demand, all of that stuff, right? And I know that if I sell my product to you for 500 Naira, I will make a profit of, for instance, I'll make a profit of 50 Naira. Then they bring the tax that says, since my business is worth 20 million Naira, I'm using some numbers that are relatable that you can use. So my business is 20 million Naira. And I am earning above the 5 million Naira threshold, which they won't tax me if I'm only earning, if my business is worth 5 million, they won't tax me. That's what they said. Okay. However, they will tax me if I'm making anything above that. So I will pay. But now you will pay. So they told that you are not paying any taxes. It doesn't affect you. It doesn't, it no concerns you. This tax reform is to help you, right? They lied to you. It's going to affect you eventually. Then the other part is that the government is not the one that is going to take the money, the taxation at the end of it. Okay, it's going to be outsourced. So what Tinubu and his gang are doing is that we will take all these taxes. Okay, we've categorized it. Okay, so affect some of you. It's going to affect some of you, but we'll take all this money in, and we will redistribute. I'm coming to the part of redistributing the money, but take all this money in, which is the job that they are going to outsource, like the alpha beta. So they will outsource it. So me, Mayegu, I can be given the contracts on behalf of Tinubu to collect all this money. Money from customs, money from immigration, money from everywhere, the businesses in Nigeria, companies and all that. So I will take all this money in, and I will take a percentage as a private company consultant. It's not going to be collected by the FIRS. It's not going to be collected by the people that are being paid as tax collectors in Nigeria. No. It will be collected by a designated company that will then remove its own percentage, right? Like the alpha beta, before giving the rest of the money to Nigeria. And when the money is now given to them, they will now decide and say, well, how much did you collect from Kano? 500 million Naira, but we have removed our 20%. Okay, you've taken your 20%. Okay. How much is left from that? Well, what is left now is 360 million from Kano. Okay, you have taken 140 million. All right, okay. How much did you take from Lagos? 260 billion Naira. So have you taken your 20%? So how much is the 20% you have taken? So we have taken our 52 billion from it. Okay, 52 billion. Okay, from Lagos. So now we are going to give Lagos 60% of what is left from what we collected from them. And the remaining money, we'll keep it in Abuja. Do you get that now? So that's another one that Ndume is not telling you yet. So this whole collection or no collection is built around the same model of what Tinubu did in Lagos. Do you understand what I'm saying? As a layman, did you? I'm still coming back to the part where we are going to talk of the effects once this is passed, okay? And this money collection or sharing formula, we're going to come to that. But you get the concept here. The concept of reforming the tax is going to affect some people, it's not going to affect some people, is a lie. The only way that you can actually tax the rich, that somehow it will touch the rich and it won't spare, not that it will spare you, the poor, is that if you tax their own income. For example, you know, say Dangote refinery is worth, according to them, $20 billion. So Dangote refinery in a year, once they started selling their, their PMS and all of that. So Dangote refinery may be making, maybe plus or minus. I'm just using some random figure now, right? Maybe they are making 1 billion. And inside that 1 billion, Dangote has a share of, let's say, 55% shares in his own refinery. So other shareholders, every other person that invested in his refinery, they will be the one to share 45%. So you would say 55% of 1 billion. That may be somewhere around $550 million. That money is for Dangote personally. So if Dangote is making 550 million from his refinery alone, and maybe the other businesses and all of that is making maybe another $500 million. So if Dangote makes 1 billion, or let's say $1.2 billion from all his businesses paid to him, so that money can be taxed by, let's say, 40% of it. So that means Dangote will pay 40% of his own personal money that he earns. This one is no longer about what the company makes now. It's about his personal money. So if they tax that like they do here in Europe, they do that. Okay, they'll say, okay, we're taking 40% of that money. So that means Dangote will not go home with 1.1 billion or $1.5 billion every year. Dangote will only go home with somewhere around maybe $800 million. Nigeria will take about 600 million or $700 million directly from Dangote's pockets. But when it comes to Dangote's company, if they are taxing Dangote's company of 25%, Dangote doesn't have to worry. Now you go pay. You get? Now go pay. Unfortunately, the real looters of Nigeria, their money is not taxed. You get what I mean? Because majority of your criminal politicians who pad budget, who steal money, they don't run businesses. Once they collect their share, they move it outside Nigeria. So, what Ndume said about giving you something with right arm and collecting it with the left arm is so true. But we are also coming to the real impact. This is the collection part, the sharing part, which is another contentious issue. Ndume added.
That is number one.
Okay.
Number two,
so just before you move forward, tell me, when do you think would have been right to present this bill?
When there is no hunger, when people are living, not surviving. Look at what is happening in America. Before they swear in Donald Trump. Didn't you hear him? I sent you that he said he's going to cut taxes because of inflation. Are we not having inflation? Inflation is going up. We're supposed to cut taxes. Ghana here that are neighbors, they are cutting taxes. They reduced their VAT from 17% to 3%. Go and check it. They have abolished airline ticket VAT. They have abolished, tax on imported spare parts. They have abolished several taxes in Ghana here.
I imagine that this the proposition.
So
that
they are moving. Wait now.
Yeah.
You should move from tax reform to first in Nigeria. What we need to do is to reform the government. You know, part of it. Go and check our personnel and overhead expenditure for this 2024 is about 50 to 60% of the budget itself. We are here in November. 20% of the budget has not been implemented. But if you check the recurrent expenditure, it has been exhausted. So that means over 15 to 20 trillion is going into personnel, debt service, recurrent expenditure. Go and check. This is not...
But Senator...
Wait now. Yeah, we should reform the government, number one. Reform, not only executive, reform the government holistically. Then, number two...
Including your Senate.
Yes, my salary.
Maybe reduce the Senate and the National Assembly to one unicameral. Is that how to go?
That is okay with me, if it will reduce costs and it will make a difference. The only problem with that kind of government is that you have a one-way role, you know. Like now, the advantage of bicameral legislature is that we have passed this to second reading.
Yeah.
If the House of Rep doesn't pass it, it's as good as nothing.
So the other thing, you said two things. First of all, is the timing. But I also want to...
I'll give you the second one.
Yeah,
please.
On the part that you mentioned about some of the items that should be exempted, just for a moment, sir. One of the some of the items you talked about in exemption, that in the case of Ghana, but the proposition in this bill seems to exempt most of what the average and the poor will buy. Food.
That is not
essentials.
True. That is not true.
That is what is in that bill.
That is what they are saying now. This is what I'm telling you. Which one will you take?
I've read the bill too.
But I'm telling you, no.
What you read?
You misinterpreted the bill.
Maybe the copy you read is different from the one
I have. No, it's the same. Are you one of those who think that you are more knowledgeable than myself?
You finished from Ohio, Senator.
Yes.
Why didn't you go to an American university?
So you see?
I finished here.
Sit down and listen. Number two, because I've been a teacher, sir.
For 20 years?
Yes.
I taught for 4 years. So we might be in the...
5 times, I taught 5 times. But on a serious note, number one is the timing, wrong timing. Number two is the issue of derivation, which is there.
Derivation is a
Number three is the issue of VAT.
Okay.
And number four is the buy-in and lack of consensus and the buy-in of Nigerians. That is number one.
Thank you. Honesty bright. You see, I am an illiterate when it comes to taxation. Thank you. I am not saying I'm a professional. Okay? And I can tell you something as well. If I want to run on my own emotion, like some of you, I'm going to say Tinubu's tax reform is good, but it is as evil as Tinubu, right? So I do not really need you to patronize me by saying, I listen to Mayegun's diary, but on this subject, he's an illiterate, or what do you call me? Yeah, he said, this is I don't even know, like somebody who is calling me illiterate is barely finding it difficult to actually spell or type a sentence that makes sense, right? So I won't take offense. I would rather just probably lecture you a bit. I am not an economist, but I understand that if I put £100 in my pocket and I spend £50 from it, right? I will be left with £50 without anyone having to speak all kind of grammars to me. And I can also possibly tell how much of that 50 pounds is going into VAT, which is the value added tax to it. And I can also tell you why, I can tell you or show you that without this tax, like a VAT added to what I'm buying, I am possibly won't need to spend the 50 pounds on what I am buying. So, in a nutshell, if all of us look at the sentimental parts of it, which is, as some are putting it, the Tinubu's tax reform is to make the North work harder. Like I said, if I'm putting my own emotion into play, I will jump into it and say, yes, show the North, which I can still do, but I can do both by educating those who care to listen, right? So what Ndume is saying is also right to some extent. Nigeria, under Tinubu, they wrote a budget. And inside that budget, this 2024, 70% of the budget is on recurrent expenditure. Only 30% is for capital expenditure. And what does that mean? 70% of their budget is to pay salary. It is for consumption. It is to consume. The remaining 30%, which would have been to invest in the critical sector of the country, like good roads, electricity, right? Including like, security per se, their economy. Now, when you now take a look at their budget of 28 trillion naira, 20 trillion of that money is to pay people's salaries, pay politicians, pay workers' salary, pay this and pay that. Just consumption, nothing to, it's not going to bring anything back or add anything to the economy per se. Even though some people will argue, they will say when they pay workers their salaries, right? They will spend the money in the economy. That is good. But on what? In an economy that is not producing any real thing within the country. The rest of the money goes into making life comfortable for politicians. And like he said, rather than reform tax, which will give you more money, by all means, it will give them more money. And the more money they get, the more they spend on recurrent. So the budget performance shows that when it comes to recurrent money, which is money for payment of their own emoluments, buying themselves all they always buy, bought for themselves, buying cars, building houses, going abroad. That is performing to the fullest. They know they miss some. That one is not missed. In some states, salaries are not even paid. You understand? Salaries are not paid. But when it now comes to the capital expenditure, something that could actually really boost and help their own country or economy, the performance is, again, recurrent expenditure performance is almost 100%. But when it comes to capital expenditures, you barely see it get to 20%. Because, number one, the economy is almost like in comatose that doesn't really produce anything than just what they are doing to take money and take money from everybody. The money is not reinvested on the people that are paying it. It's not reinvested on the same economy that is giving them the taxes. So which simply means it is just being taken and consumed. So it had no value per se. They can tax you like even 60, 70%, take more money. But where does the money go to? It goes into taking care of these freeloaders, these criminals. Tinubu is appointing a lot of aides and all of that. And similar thing goes on across Nigeria. Money spent on frivolities that doesn't even add any value at all. So if you want to reform what you first need to do genuinely is to cut the waste. Cut the waste. You do not need 12, aircraft, including shoppers, to serve your political class. You do not need that. You do not need to buy cars for your lawmakers. They can find their ways to the same assembly, Abi. You do not need to increase the salary of those who are already earning more than their counterparts in the rest of the world. You do not. So if you block the wastages, that means you can still have some that can be diverted into one. If you invest in your own power, for example, and Nigeria becomes a country that is having 24 hours electricity, businesses don't have to be paying for electricity and at the same time fueling their generators to run their businesses. So that means they can save. And the more businesses saves, right, if you cut down these taxes, right, the more they save, the likelihood they will expand. And the more they expand, the likelihood that they are going to employ more people. And the more people are employed, the more taxes that will eventually come. The more people that will pay taxes. And just same thing, it's like a cycle. The more money you take in, the more you reinvest back into the country, not on yourselves. So the northern Nigeria, who has been receiving this free money like forever, they have never invested, not invested in education, not invested in real infrastructure. They themselves, they are just the mini size of the federal government that is taking the chunk of the money, just the mini federal government, which means as they are collecting the money, they are sharing the money among themselves. Similarly, more money goes into recurrent expenditures than they go into capital projects. So if the money is not forthcoming, most of them will become insolvent, which means they will go bankrupt. And that is the fear that is currently pervading the land. The one that they are going to now turn to political, as it is already turning. Consumption tax, which I have explained before as well, means when you are taxed for buying something, right, that money should possibly just go straight to the cover of the states where you are consuming that particular product or so. But Nigeria, the way Nigeria is kind of like politically structured, the money doesn't really go to your states. Even though, like some of these northerners are saying, the consumption tax that are being paid to Lagos states from the telecommunication companies should ordinarily come to them. And I think Tinubu and his gang agreed in that their reform, but that, yeah, okay, fine. We will collect the money, calculate it, and then give you your percentage. If you are talking about telecommunication, because the North is arguing that their region, by population, they use more mobile networks than the rest of Nigeria. So the money should come to them. But in all honesty, that won't still give them more money if they continue to break the bottles of alcohol. And something that they haven't told their people, alcohol is haram, according to this Sharia norm. They have ISBA that is busy destroying people's businesses up north. They make real show of it. But with Tinubu's tax reform, alcohol VAT will not be paid to northern Nigeria at all. And after telecommunication, the Nigerian breweries, they are the ones who also pay the most. I mean, from this 2023 report, I think they actually like after telecommunication, it is these Nigerian breweries. And it is not, okay, somebody said it is not only alcohol that Nigerian breweries actually produces, okay? They produce other non-alcoholic drinks and all that. But the issue is that alcoholic drink actually pays more in taxes. So if you are not consuming alcohol or destroying the bottles of alcohol in northern Nigeria, it simply means there is going to be drastic and massive reduction in what you are going to get. So somebody said they should then become creative